first of all, just like to welcome everybody to day 2 of our Learning Redefined conference. This is our first ever one, and it was a fantastic day yesterday. I would thoroughly recommend looking at the highlights once they're released, and some great sessions around the English curriculum, around coding with Codable, as well as a panel in the evening. I'm Graham Trick, I'm the learning specialist here at Showbie, and if anybody hasn't joined the sessions yesterday, just a little recap: we're a hybrid learning platform that's empowering over 3 million users globally, and our aim is to be able to set work, provide richer, deeper, more personalized feedback, and to help with assessment of all learners. Something we're really proud of doing, and it was coming up to almost 10 years. You can find out more about us at showbie.com. During the presentation, please use the Q&A feature to ask any questions, because there's going to be about 10 minutes at the end where we can quiz Phil and talk all things maths. For now, I'd like to welcome Phil and thank you for agreeing to do this workshop. I'm really excited for what Phil's about to present, where we're exploring the use of technology in maths. So Phil, over to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Graham. So yes, hello, my name is Phil Hurd. I'm a teacher who is, I'm associate head teacher for Transform Trust now, and I am in look after the development of both maths and digital within the trust. I am by training, I suppose, a primary maths specialist, and over the last sort of 2 or 3 years, I've also taken on the sort of portfolio for digital as well. And when I was asked to do this session, I was very excited, seeing as it does combine kind of 2 of my great sort of loves, maths and digital. So we're going to make a start now, and I'm going to share my screen with you. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to start off just by trying to get everybody on the same kind of page, and the page is all about lesson design. With the maths mastery, which has kind of been the dominant lesson design of the last sort of 5 or 6 years, we have this basic model here where we review the learning, we assess, we model, we guide, and then we give the children some independent work. And it might be called different things, but if you are familiar with White Rose, Power Maths, Maths No Problem, it's essentially this structure, but with different names. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you through this structure and suggest some ways that you can use technology to enhance the children's learning. Now, what I've decided to do is kind of base it around one idea of learning and in one year group mainly. So, you know, apologies for the narrow focus of that, but what I'm hoping that you'll do is sort of see the ideas, and your brain will start ticking as to trying to work out how you might apply that in your context. So we're going to start off with the review section, and there's a few different ways that we can review children's prior learning. And the first one are kind of low stakes quizzes. A lot of the learning that that I'm going to be talking about today has come from things like the Learning Scientist. They're very popular at the minute. You've got Rosenshine's Principles of Instruction, Tom Sherrington's work on that. And one of the things that they both advocate is this kind of low stake quizzes. And to achieve that, through a digital perspective, I'm going to look at using Socrative. Now, in Socrative, you can use, you can set different types of questions where you have got you can see them here: short answer, fact check, short problem solving, and then multiple choice and true and false. So I'm just going to give you an example of some of those. So here is one where we kind of give the children multiple choice. We're kind of looking at perhaps early years, year one type example here. But what the children have to do is just work out which sentence does not describe that picture. And one of the things I like about Showbie is the fact that you can put the picture in there just to kind of aid the learning. Especially if we're talking with the younger ones, they don't, they haven't necessarily got the reading skills, but they will be able to use that picture to help them. So there we have a multiple choice kind of question. The next type is one where you expect a short answer, and this is really nice to get the children to think mathematically. Thinking mathematically, reasoning is vital for the children to understand really deeply the concepts that we're trying to teach. And here we have a true-false question, but the difference, but the addition of this bit here, where I asked them to explain their thinking, without the G, to explain their thinking, was really useful, and it allowed me to kind of really understand whether they have understood that concept of place value. Fortunately, this child did. And then the last thing that I'm going to show you is just a nice, straightforward, short answer, something like times tables, and you can set the answer, which is really nice. And the thing with Socrative is you get the data feedback. You can find out which children have understood, which children might need some extra support, which children have got some sort of major misconceptions that you might need to address. And again, you get that on an individual basis, but then also you can sort of see as a class, okay, well, that misconception arose quite a lot. Therefore, I'm going to need to reteach that. So that's really, really good, really useful. Another way that we can review children's learning is just to get them to annotate a diagram. So what I did was I uploaded this diagram of fractions here to Keynote, and I just asked the children to write down as much as they could understand from that picture. So we have quite a lot there. This child demonstrated to me that they had remembered quite a lot. This was a year 4 child. So it's not necessarily kind of year 4 work. Some of it is, but you've got things about the meaning of fractions. You've got equivalent fractions. You've got unit fractions. So we've got some really nice work there from this child. And, it would be possible to do that kind of on a whiteboard, but the trouble with whiteboards is once the child has rubbed that learning out, it's gone forever. And if you haven't managed to get round and see everybody, then you might not be able to pick up their understanding. Whereas if it's done through something like this, it's there for you to be able to check, especially if they kind of upload it to Showbie, or if you kind of using Apple Classrooms, you can have a look. And if there's any child who has, it might be, for instance, that a child gets something wrong, you can use that as a discussion point. You can put that onto the board, nice discussion point. Obviously you've got the, you need to have fostered the culture where it's safe and children are happy to do that. But once you've done that, by all means, share the work on the board and use it as discussion points. So that's a really nice thing to do. Another way of reviewing is to use Padlet. So I just set the question here: prove 2/3 equals 6/9. And I just have to add the little health warning here that it would be great, wherever possible, for you not to draw your fractions like this. my wife is a math teacher and she'll be shuddering now if I don't mention this. If you write your fractions like that, it can lead to misconceptions later on in secondary school. So if wherever possible, and unfortunately it wasn't possible on Padlet, but wherever possible, if you could write your fractions where the numerator and the denominator are one on top of the other, that would be fantastic. That means I'm allowed to keep my card in the Maths Teachers Union if I mention that. So what I've done is I've set that question here, and I've got 3 different ways that the children have remembered to prove this. And what's really nice about this is as the children add to it, it comes up live. So I can share this Padlet with all the children. So if a child is sat there a little bit stuck, then they can use this to help and scaffold their own learning. So they're using the support of their peers to kind of develop their understanding, which is really nice. Now, it might be the case that they just copy somebody else's, but you know, given if after 10 minutes, well, you wouldn't give it 10 minutes, but if after a couple of minutes they were a child hadn't responded, but then all of a sudden they've copied all 3 of these, you know, then you've got that, you know, you need to have some kind of intervention. Or if their child is just sitting there sort of blankly, you might just have a wander over and suggest one of these. So it's that real time assessment opportunity for you to be able to see how they're doing with their understanding, which is really nice. Okay, so we're going to move on to the modeling section of the lesson, and I'm just going to show you 2 examples here, the fully worked example and the partially worked example. And I'm going to, if you would just indulge me for a moment, I'm just going to show you about a 90-second clip of a colleague of mine called Jeremy using the screen record function on his iPad to where he had modeled how to teach something. He recorded it and he made that available in Showbie. So
here we can see in question 1, the addition sentence is 24 add 15. So below that, I've set it out as a column addition, and we can see the 10s are lined up with the 10s and the 1s are lined up with the 1s. So first of all, in green, I'm going to highlight the 1s because we add those together first. So 4 adds 5 is 9, so I'll write that in the 1s answer box. And then next I'm going to highlight in pink the 10s. So 2 10s add 1 10, we know is 3 10s because the value of this column is 10s, which gives us our answer of 39. So next to my original number sentence, I can now put in the answer of 39 because I know that 24 add 15 is 39. Next, if we look at question 2, we're going to think about how we set this number sentence out, 43 add 25, as a column addition. So I'm going to write T and O, just so I really understand really clearly which column is my 10s, which column is my 1s. So 43 is 4 10s and 3 1s, and 25 is 2 10s and 5 1s. Put my addition symbol, and again, as before, with green, I'm highlighting my 1s, so I need to add together 3 and 5, which I know is 8, and write in my 1s answer box. Next, I'm going to highlight in pink the 10s, 4 and 2, but remember these are 10s, 4 10s and 2 10s is 6 10s. And then I have my answer of 68. So at the end of my original number sentence, 43 add 25, I now know that this makes 68 using the column addition method.
okay, so there's a couple of things there that I want to sort of highlight. First of all, Jeremy started doing this during the kind of remote learning lockdown, and he was providing these little sort of 90-second, 2-minute clips for his pupils. And he found that it was really, really good, A, for the pupils, but B, for the parents. You had not so much with column addition, because a lot of parents only ever want to teach their children column addition and subtraction as the only method, but some of the funkier methods that we use these days, the bar model, that kind of thing, that the parents might not have seen before. He was recording it as a little 2-minute clip, and it just helped massively with that parental engagement, and and then the children were also had a model that they could then refer back to in their own leisure. And it worked so well that Jeremy has continued it within now that he's back teaching his class in school full time. And it's not a massive workload thing. It's, you know, as I say, he did this live. It's not necessarily perfect. And that's one thing I was really kind of keen to stress to him, you know, not to worry about the production values of this. Otherwise, then it does become a workload issue. But something like this, it was massive. It was fairly short, but the impact that it had on the children was really, really huge. One of the things I like that he's done on here, and you can just about still see it through the blur, if I just put that, yeah, here we go, it's just his use of colour. So through Showbie, his use of colour to highlight the sections that he's talking about is really nice, and it makes it really clear to the children. The fact that the children have got this to watch again at their own in their own time, if they're a bit stuck during the independent work, is really big. And when Jeremy was modelling this, he talked about 4 10s and 2 10s, you know, using the correct language rather than just 4 add 2. He said 4 add 2, but and then he said, and don't forget it's 4 10s and 2 10s. So the children have that model of good language that they can use in their own independent work as well. So that's the fully worked example. And one of the things that Jeremy said that was really nice about this is you might have seen kind of halfway through when he moved on to this second question, he zoomed out and then zoomed in, so he can use the screen kind of expanding, and he can make these areas as big as he wants to make it really easy for the children to see. So that's the fully worked example. We then have the partially worked example, and I've just got a screenshot. This is another one back onto fractions here, and we are adding fractions. So we've got the we've got the fully worked model here at the top. And as you can see, the production values aren't great again. We've used the big fat pen to write with, but that's not, you know, that's not a problem. It's still clear. And again, it's clear and it doesn't have a big impact on workload. But the difference with this one is we have this example here for the children to have a go at. So the children, this was a problem that I did. I uploaded it quickly to Showbie, and the children were then able to just fill this in, give me an understanding of whether they understood, you know, that idea that you don't add the denominators as well. That was the kind of key point I was trying to get across. So I was a partially worked example. So there we go. Now, another thing that we can do with modeling is to address misconceptions head on. So here I have an example of a common misconception with adding fractions where you have added the denominator. And what I really like is, as I say, addressing these head on, but I can now, again, give this out to the children for them to annotate, for them to leave voice notes. And again, you can do that via Showbie, via Keynote, a sort of your Apple Classroom. And again, it gives them the opportunity to record their conversation or to record their thinking in a way that they wouldn't necessarily have if they didn't have the technology. They could talk about this in their pairs, and that's kind of teaching 101. But again, once that conversation finishes, it's gone forever. And if a child is has sort of struggling with sort of retention and the memory aspect of it, that conversation is gone. Whereas if they record it either verbally or annotate it via Showbie, Keynote, they have that recording to refer back to. And I think that's really the key. So yeah, addressing misconceptions head on. We're then going to move on to guiding the children's learning. And when we guide the learning, there's a little thing here called elaborative interrogation. And again, this comes from the learning scientists. And one of the things that we do is we ask specific questions. Why questions especially are really good for this. So we've got a couple of why questions here. And even this what question here is fairly open-ended. So I have presented this slide to the children via Showbie, and I have in the past left my own voice notes of me reading the question so that they can then, you know, if their reading isn't good enough, then they can hear the question as well. You know, that's really good for kind of Key Stage 1. So I've left voice notes, or I just leave these questions here, and the children are able to respond to these, again, either via voice notes, annotate, and they've got that record again. But the difference between this one and this one here is this is a lot more open. So the children need to have that understanding, whereas here, by directing the questions, I am kind of channeling their thinking. I'm giving them something to hang their hat on. I'm scaffolding their thinking, which is really important. So there we have the guide, and we have another one here. And we have, what I really like about Showbie is the ability to sort of send different work to different children. Now, if I'm doing it in advance, if I know in advance which children need which level of support, I can do that via Showbie. But if something's changed on the fly, I've got it wrong, I thought a child could do question A, but they need question B, or I thought they could do question B, and then I can do it kind of on the fly via Apple Classrooms. And one of the important things in this mastery approach is that children are, give or take, generally doing the same kind of work. So I have this question here, but it's possible to provide a scaffold during this guided section for, well, I put 3 levels here, they're all 3 levels of differentiation. But what is really important is that all the children are attempting this question. Now, child number 1 has got this level of scaffold here. And as I say, I can send that to one child. I can send it to however many children I want via Showbie if I know which children are going to need it. If I decide in the moment Apple Classrooms is really good for that. I might send some children this level of scaffold. And then finally, I might send some children this level of scaffold. So using technology allows me to really quickly send the children the right level of scaffold. I don't have to print anything out. I don't have to chop it up. I don't have to wander around my classroom thinking, oh, you need that sheet, you need that sheet, you need. All of these things take time, provide the opportunity for kind of fuss and distraction. So if I'm handing things out, the children will be attending to me handing things out. Their attention will be drawn to me. But through this, their attention is drawn straight away to the correct level of support for them. So it really does focus their it focuses them straight onto their work rather than the opportunity. Oh, can I hand out? Can I hand out? No, you don't need to hand out. Let's crack straight on. And it's really good for that kind of organizational things. Okay, the final, I think, way that we might guide the children's learning, well, there's a couple, and we need to sort of build in fluency. Now, one way of building in fluency is low stakes quiz. I'm not going to mention that again, but obviously we had Socrative at the start. So just low stakes quizzings to help build fluency. But another way we can build fluency is just check for understanding by asking the children to summarize. So here is a problem. So I've taught this. I'm just checking whether they understand. And again, they could annotate this diagram, they could leave voice notes, they could have a conversation with each other, and then it just helps them consolidate their learning in their head, kind of internalize their understanding, but then it really gives me the evidence that I need to make that assessment judgment on whether we can kind of proceed to the next stage of the lesson, whether I need to support them through the next stage of the lesson. So that assessment opportunity is there for me. And as I say, if you were to do this on whiteboards or just as a talk activity, it could be lost. Now, the key to all of this is to use all these things at the right time, and and not to overuse them. But if you use them strategically, they're a really great tool to supporting you in better understanding your children's understanding of a given topic. Okay, we're going to move on to the independent practice now. And the independent practice, there's a couple of things I'd just like to look at here. So we have, well, the main thing the thing I want to look at is, I suppose, is collaboration. But we have a problem here that's kind of a year 6 problem. I moved away from fractions. I use this problem quite a lot, but this is an introduction to algebra for year 6 children. And it kind of shows you the level of the curriculum now, that this was my GCSE coursework nearly 30 years ago, and I've used it now in year 6 lessons. That said, it is entirely possible to teach this to earlier pupils. And that's because there's several ways you can approach this lesson and several ways you can solve this problem. And here we have some different ways of solving this problem. So it could be that I make the path with squares. I've cut out some cardboard squares, and that would be maybe what I do with early years children. But then I might get them to draw the path and then create a table, look for patterns, and then create and use a formula. Now, this being a year 6 task, this is where I want, this is the age-related expectation. But before all that, we get here. And whenever I've taught this in year 6, they generally start here with drawing the path. You'll get a few children will start to make a table, but most will start here. And the great thing about using technology to support you in here is the ability to collaborate. So I've got an example, and here we have Explain Everything. And in Explain Everything, I created a collaborative document, and we had 4 children work on this at one time. And when I record, it's possible to record this as well and make it available to the children. I can share it on the screen to lead discussion. But I had one child, and I asked the children to write in different colours to sort of show which bit they were doing. And I was able to sort of say to each child, can you work on this? Can you work on that? Now, the formula came after discussion. That didn't just happen. That came after discussion. But we started off with the child creating the red, and we then had another child was able to create the table, so for red. And then once they had created the table, the discussion was able to lead to the child who's written in green this statement here, this generalized statement here, which was really good for their understanding. And then the leap to the algebra required some teaching, but then that's where I stepped in and I was able to sort of lead that discussion. So the collaborative nature of this kind of led one on to the other, and that was really useful. I've done the same lesson with Keynote, and again, just a collaborative document, and again, really useful to sort of share with the children. So I think, oh no, little bit here, a little bit more. So there's one little bit left. So the independent practice, again, there's just a couple of things. So through Showbie, we have got this teacher. This wasn't me. This was a year 3 teacher. This was done during remote learning. Yes, this was done through remote learning, that the teacher uploaded these documents for the children to fill in. But what was really good, and the teacher has kind of continued using some of this learning from lockdown in his teaching now. He's still doing this on some occasions. And what he's uploaded the questions from White Rose for the children to fill in. And you can't see it on this one, but he has been able to annotate. I had a look through some of them, and he has annotated with some questions to sort of develop the children's thinking even further. And what was really good about this is, he's got all his evidence on his iPad. Obviously, we try and do live marking, get round the children as best we can, but there's going to be occasions where he doesn't quite pick up everybody. Reality is that you might be caught with a child sort of explaining something for a bit longer than you thought, to ensure that they've really understood. But he then had this evidence without, he just had to take his iPad home to kind of have a look through, rather than all the books, which there's evidence from one of our teachers. She said she was giving feedback about the use of iPads, and her big thing was she can cycle to school because she could take an iPad home to do her marking and feedback. And, in terms of well-being, that was really big for her. And I'm not suggesting you take your marking home, that's whatever works best for you. That's what works for her. She's happy to do that. She likes to be out the door early, but she's happy to work, and do her feedback at home. And Showbie has allowed her to do that. Now, it might be the case that you want to keep work in books. Well, this school, this is one of the schools in our trust. They do their work in their books, but then they upload to take a quick photo to Showbie. And what we've got here is this school. They use the green pen is where they have copied the teachers' modelling, and the blue is any questions that they have, any additional notes that they have made themselves. So this is the children doing their own thinking, which is a really nice way of sort of seeing. But again, by uploading the photo to Showbie, the feedback's done through Showbie, the abilities for the teacher to do that feedback at a time that is convenient to them, without having to take home a load of books, is really good. And found that those schools that have adopted that policy have found it really, really beneficial for those teachers. So thank you very much. And I think hopefully Graham comes back and leads the Q&A session.
Hi, Phil. Thanks. There's lots of ideas have come out there, and we've had a question come through, actually, based on what you'd said about not sweating too much on production values. From your work across the trust, have you seen any gains on teacher workload, or does using the digital side of things create another challenge for teachers' time?
So it's created a challenge initially for those children, for those teachers whose digital skills are at the beginning of their learning journey. So for teachers who are learned, but what we've done as a trust is we've invested a lot of time through Showbie, through our education partner, in supporting teachers to develop the skills. So yes, for those teachers who are less confident, but as soon as they have got their confidence up, and Jeremy, who made that video, it's reduced his workload, it's reduced his stress, because what has happened is that was a, as I say, that was a 90-second, 2-minute clip, and that was done pretty much live. He didn't redo it, he just did it straight away. But what that did was, in the lesson, it freed him up. He didn't have to go around trying to sort of solve 30 children putting their hands up, saying, I don't understand it. You know, the children now are familiar that if the videos are there, they can go back and watch that video. So it's reduced his workload and his stress in the lesson. And then also, the school that Jeremy's at is a school that is well supported by the parents. But what was often the case was that they didn't understand all the methods. So what they were able to do was share these videos, and the children are coming to the lessons with more knowledge, because the parents, you know, it's a supportive school, the parents are helpful, but they're teaching them, they're helping them in the right way now. So again, they're coming to the school ready to, and they know the information. So therefore, again, Jeremy's workload is reduced because he's not having to firefight 30 children who don't understand.
So is that expectation with the parental support and watching the videos, is that expected, or is that is that a voluntary side that's just come about by accident?
So it's not expected at the minute. Certainly with that, because as a trust, and we don't have many schools who are where we have all the teachers up to speed. We've got one or two, and they've kind of moved, and the school, those are schools that are moving to one-to-one iPads. Mm-hmm. But what we found is that if we have people like Jeremy, who is a trailblazer for us as a trust, you know, the people out there watching this may very well be further ahead than Jeremy, but in the context of his school, Jeremy is a trailblazer, and what we are doing is we're sharing the quick wins and how we can improve your work-life balance, making sure that you do the things that matter. I think that's the key to work-life balance. We don't, you know, we're all going to work hard. We're teachers, it's what we do. But what we want to do is make sure that the work we're doing is effective. So what happens is Jeremy's blazing this trail, and his colleagues are seeing him making, with a better work-life balance, making more of a difference with it. So they ask him, can you, how do you do, what do you do that? So it's not an expectation, but it's very quickly, the uptake from teachers has been very good. Yeah.
And what I was trying to get at was the motivation of the students. So kind of, are you finding that, is Jeremy finding that increased motivation from the students because of the support that they're getting from the parents as well?
Oh, not just Jeremy, but through our trust. So the procedures that Jeremy is able to put in place is much better. So the children can come in, they know that, you know, they can put their thing on Showbie, they can start their work straight away. It's far more efficient. It's far calmer in his classroom in the morning, and again across the trust. Where those routines are set, the motivation is definitely there. It's been very big for quite a number of our schools.
Yeah, and one thing, Jeremy actually is on this webinar, so he's just commented there saying that the children are really motivated and the parents can see their work via the parent access in Showbie. So from that point of view, it's again having those, they don't have to look over the shoulder of the child, they can access through the parent logins. So thanks, Jeremy, for piping into there.
I'm glad I'm giving him due credit and being nice about him now then as well.
Yeah, it's probably why he's joined, just to see what you're talking about. Yeah, so we've had a question from Maria about explain everything recordings, and it's more of an app feature, which I'm happy just to answer there. So one of the things that you can do is export and explain everything as a movie, and then if you upload it direct into Showbie, it streams back. And I'm presuming that was the example that you were talking about a little bit earlier in how that worked.
Yeah,
Yeah. So are there any other questions that anybody's got? Jeremy, do you want to put Phil on the spot again, or if it's too early for people, feel free to watch this back again when the recording goes live, and feel free to reach out by ourselves. We've got lots going on today. So there's a session on student-led learning a little bit later on. We've got a discussion panel where Phil's going to be kindly coming back, and he's going to have his wider trust hat on rather than his teaching and learning and his maths head. So you're going to have those, have access to those all week, and feel free to reach out to ourselves. Yvonne is just asked when the recordings go live. The guys in our marketing department are working furiously to go over them at the end of each day. So we're hoping within the week, and you should get an email. Keep an eye out on social media, through Twitter channel, Facebook, LinkedIn, and those recordings will be going up there as well. So if there's no more questions coming in, I'd like to say thank you very much for everyone attending, and thank you, Phil, for giving up your time, so getting the early shift in, and we look forward to speaking to you later on.
I can sit back and enjoy the headliners tonight now then.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks a lot, and bye now.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.